Well, I love Maryland. I'm a proud Marylander. My family showed up here as immigrants at the turn of the 20th century, and we've been here ever since. I think Congress right now, there are far too many people for whom the hardest thing they've ever done is the campaign that got them there. And I think there are far too many people in Congress who put their own careers first and the partisan agendas of the day first and what the party bosses want first. And I think it is time for a new generation of leadership. Well, first off, I think it's great that 4 people are running because that means there's going to be excitement. It sends a signal that this is a seat that people should start paying attention to. I think the other 3 candidates in the primary would agree that we want Democrats to get excited about this race, which is great. There's a number of things that separate me from those other candidates. I have a unique story. I'm an Army Ranger. I've got 4 combat deployments to Afghanistan. Before that, I spent a year near the DMZ in South Korea. I've worked in business. I've put myself with a GI Bill through Columbia University. I have a master's in international affairs. And I have a bipartisan marriage. And I'm a Democrat, and my wife is a Republican. And you referenced what the district looks like and who the voters are and what they care about. And for a race like this, you need to have appeal to Democrats and independents and Republicans. And when I'm finding it resonates is people look at my service and look at the bipartisan nature of my home, and that's really resonating. The biggest thing the Army taught me was leadership. I owe the Army a lot. I gave the Army a lot, but I owe a lot to the Army. Leadership, I got a chance to attend Army Ranger School, which is the premier leadership school in the military. And then I served in the Army Rangers. It's the 75th Ranger Regiment. And it's the best leadership school, and then it's really the best group of leaders. If you look at special operations, there are all these Rangers in senior leadership positions. On my first deployment, my boss took me aside and he said, "Jesse, I fired the last 3 guys who sat in your seat." I said, "Okay, sir, what does that mean for me?" He said, "I don't care if you have enough time. I don't care if you have enough energy, enough resources. If the Afghan allies you're working with aren't trained enough, I don't care if your best deputy is on R&R. You need to get the job done. We're a results-based organization." And that you can only learn in the Army, and you can only learn in a situation like being on a combat deployment in Afghanistan. And that experience, so you see the firsthand cost in blood and treasure of what happens when we go overseas and commit our troops and our resources. What I've walked away is there are a lot of threats. The unfortunate reality is there are a lot of threats around the world to our way of life, to the homeland, to our interests, to our allies. And it's going to cost, in some cases, we're going to have to spend blood and treasure. What I took away from my deployments to Afghanistan is we need to understand what the threat is. We need to understand the blood and treasure that it's worth putting up against those threats. And then we need to come home and explain that to people. Whether it's Niger or Libya or Syria or Iraq or Afghanistan, I think what's missing from Washington back into districts, this is something I'll bring home to the district if elected, is, hey, here are the threats overseas. Here's why we're spending our blood and treasure. And here's how we're doing. Are we winning or losing? Because that conversation is absolutely missing right now from Washington. So no, we're making it a referendum about Andy Harris. This is not a referendum about the president. If the president fails, we actually all fail. If lucky enough to be elected, if a bill crosses my desk, I'm going to ask myself 2 questions. One is it in the interest, what help the people in the district? And the second is it good for the country? Is it in the interest of the country? So if President Trump wants to invest in infrastructure in Maryland, I'm going to be at the front of the line to work with him. If he wants to go to war with North Korea because of a fight on Twitter, I will be at the front of the line to stop that and to fight that. So it's going to be a referendum about Andy Harris. The worst butt chewing I ever got was from Coach K. To cover the men's basketball beat was the thing everybody wanted to do. So first you had to cut your teeth. I covered women's field hockey, women's volleyball, men's soccer, women's soccer. And then I finally got to cover men's basketball. And we were playing Maryland, and the center from Maryland I knew from, he was born on the Western Shore too. I knew from high school, and I thought that Coach K should have had devised a strategy to take advantage of this guy. So we're in the press conference. It's carried live on ESPN. Some of my heroes are in the room. Dick Vitale was in the room. John Feinstein was in the room, who had a son.
Oh my God.
And they're doing that, and I'm the little student cub reporter in the back row, and Coach K held up the press conference so I could ask a question.
Yeah.
And he said, hold on, the student reporter. He was just doing it. And of course, being a 19-year-old thinking I had all the answers, I said, hey, my question was basically, hey, Coach K, you screwed up tonight. Why did you do that? And he just, eviscerated is probably the right word. You could hear a pin drop. John Feinstein, my hero, I read I read all his books. He turned to his son and said, don't be like that guy, that kid. It was the worst. 6 years in the Army, that was the worst. Yeah, anyway.